I have a question for you. Are you starting to get a little bit tired of the media constantly complaining about the football calendar, fixture congestion, and player welfare? Because I personally am completely fed up with it. So just for context, Chelsea's Levi Colwill tore his ACL on the eve of the season, and so it's too bad that he's going to miss a significant amount of time through injury. But if you're Sky Sports, you just rubbed your hands together when he got injured and said, oh, this is a fantastic opportunity for us to once again talk about the football calendar. So what we're going to do in this video here is watch this segment. I'm going to react to it and hopefully be able to provide a certain level of perspective that you just don't really hear, because when these people get together, they just say whatever they want with no pushback, and a lot of the time they say things that are just untrue. So welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let me know your opinions. What do you think of the points made by the journalists and my own as well? All right, so without further ado, let's get to the video.
Levi Colwill, and he's had surgery after suffering an injury in training this week, but he's that bit younger. I wonder, just to Essan's earlier point about the calendar and just simply the workload that these players, especially at the big clubs, with barely any summer breaks, a player like a Cole Palmer this time around, for example, or Colwill, how much do you think this is going to become more of a trend that actually players who peak earlier because they're fielded earlier in their careers also suffer these injuries earlier? Do you think we're going to see ultimately players having shorter careers?
Got to be honest with you, I've never heard that argument before, that players are getting fielded earlier in their careers, they're peaking earlier and therefore have shorter careers. It's frankly absurd, and the reason why is all recent trends over the last 40 years tell us that players' careers have actually been extended quite significantly. I mean, all you have to do is take a look around. Cristiano Ronaldo is 40. He will probably be at the World Cup next summer. Same with Messi, who's 38 and dominating MLS. Luka Modric just signed for AC Milan. He is 39. Then the over 35 club includes guys like Francesco Acerbi, Angel Di Maria, Robert Lewandowski, even Edin Dzeko at 39 playing for Fenerbahce. And we know that the reason these guys' careers have been extended is sports science is much better. Players are not allowed to put in the same kinds of tackles that they could in the 90s. You can't Roy Keane somebody. And so the game is basically safer now, and it has made it so that players can last a lot longer. Now, Levi Colwill is 22 years old. He got his debut at 18, which is about the same time that all these other older players I was just talking about also got their debuts. So he's not starting to play earlier. I don't know how you can say that they're peaking earlier, and they certainly are not having shorter careers.
This makes me so mad because people like football will move on, right? Football will forget about Levi Colwill.
Okay, so this is Jonathan Lowe. He is a writer for The Guardian, and he's mad.
Chelsea might sign someone else. They look quite short in defence. So, they might just sign someone else in defence. England will move on. Colwill will be the collateral damage for a calendar. I think we can all agree it's just totally irrational.
Okay, that's an extreme thing to say. First of all, yes, people will move on because that's kind of what you just do in life. Even the biggest tragedies force us to have to move on. You've been seeing the tributes for Diogo Jota this past weekend. Absolutely terrific, but that doesn't mean that football stops because of that. And even when players have cardiac arrest and go down on the pitch, some have died in the past. You can see Christian Eriksen back in the Euros, even though he went down and had to be taken off the pitch, and it was a really horrifying scene to watch, the match still was finished. So yeah, we move on. And I don't know why, but Jonathan Lowe seems to have a real problem with that.
The fact that you play a long season, you play international tournaments, you play pre-season friendlies and all of that, and then you add in the Club World Cup in the height of an American summer, and you expect players not to go down, or frankly, I think the game doesn't really care. I think the game has such an abundance of players coming through. It's got such an abundance of money and greed that the human being, Levi Colwill, is basically collateral damage.
So you can tell the way he talked about the Club World Cup right there. He sort of paused right before saying something because the British media were the heaviest critics of that tournament. Basically the whole time just saying players will get injured because this thing exists. And then he finishes by saying the human being, Levi Colwill, is collateral damage. So what he's signaling here is I care about the person, but football doesn't care.
It doesn't really matter to football that he's now going to miss 8 to 10 months of his career, of his development, of his ambition, that he's probably going to miss an international tournament because there's always someone else who can come in.
Yeah, I don't think this guy knows who James Maddison is, apparently. He also recently tore his ACL. The problem with James Maddison is he doesn't fit this narrative, right? He didn't play in the Club World Cup. He didn't actually play a full slate of games last season because he was injured for a fair amount. And, well, he is kind of known to be injury prone, so you can't use him as an example. The other thing is saying that football doesn't care. It's just a weird thing to say. It's like, who? Like the public, the broadcasters, the owners, the club itself, the governing bodies? Who are you talking about here?
And that is where we are with football. It's greed and essentially a dehumanization process where players are really just units of labor who can just be brought in and sweated and replaced as and when.
Yeah, and there he just goes off the deep end, in my opinion. To say that these players are basically just seen as units of labor and that they're sweated. Dude, they make like $100,000 a week and they're kicking a ball around for a living. They're entertainers. I mean, this is beyond ridiculous. I'm really sorry, but we are not talking about day laborers who are working for 12, 20 hours and then getting paid like 10 cents for it. And they're making the clothing that you're wearing on your back or making your iPhone or whatever. No, he actually basically said that a multi-millionaire is being rejected and tossed into the trash heap because there's too much money and greed in football. I mean, to say a dehumanization process, it's like, dude, you're a football writer. It sounds like you would do better talking about humanitarian aid and regimes that starve people in war. I mean, that's what it sounds like you would prefer writing about. These kinds of terms, they don't really apply to football, especially not the high-profile guys who are multimillionaires.
And of course, it's a 48-team World Cup as well at the end of this new season.
Always got to talk about the 48-team World Cup as if all of a sudden every team is going to be playing like 10 to 12 more games. No, the reality is if you make it to the final of the next World Cup, you will have played one match more than the 32-team format. But saying 48 teams sounds so much more than 32, and so you make people think that the amount of games is just skyrocketing completely out of control.
Look, we know that, Chelsea have got some of the best medical staff out there. I'm sure that they will take as best care of him as they can.
No, yeah, but they've got like really good doctors. They're going to do the best they can to take care of him. Let's not go too far here, man.
Where does this reach breaking point, or have we passed that? What will it take for, if anything, football to go in reverse from this, or will it just not?
Once again, the language being used is key here. He's talking about a breaking point. Are we going to be able to go in reverse from this? It's like we're about to go off a cliff and never again will we be able to go back to a day where footballers are like not getting injured. And actually, there are solutions to this. I mean, take France, for instance. Ligue 1 got shrunk from 20 teams to 18, so that reduced 4 games off the schedule. May have helped PSG last season. The other thing that they got rid of is their Coupe de la Ligue, the equivalent of the League Cup. They still have their Coupe de France, which is like the FA Cup in England, but they got rid of their secondary cup competition because it was just a waste of time. Now, if you were to talk about the EFL Cup, the League Cup, well, that was a money grab back in the 1950s. The whole reason that competition was created was to compete with the European Cup. Floodlights were now added into stadiums, and so you could do midweek games. If you really want to make a case for reducing games and going back from this insane point of no return, apparently, that we're in, just start reducing the ones that really don't matter, that most of the public says they don't care about anyway.
Yeah, it's only going to go in one direction. I see this going in the direction of only if the players ever went on strike, which again is so inconceivable because, as Jonathan says, because there's so many players out there that have this dream of playing at the top level, all players in some way are replaceable. So
I mean, these points are so ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, the idea that the players striking is inconceivable, it's because multimillionaires going on strike to play a few less games a season does not go over well with the public. When Rodri brought it up, he got absolutely hammered for it, and rightfully so. When you're making $100K a week, you cannot say, I'm just kind of tired. If I could only play 60 games instead of 65, it would be so much better. And actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the words of Bayern chief Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. This was on whether players were at risk of physical overload because of the Club World Cup. He said, I wouldn't over-dramatize it. As a player, I would have been happy to participate in such a tournament. Of course, this season brings more games thanks to the Club World Cup, but this tournament only takes place every 4 years. And many players, together with their agents, have contributed to this situation and set the trap for themselves. They demand ever-increasing salaries, which forces clubs to seek additional revenue streams. That's why new formats are emerging. On the other hand, I see little willingness from them to forego salary. That's a contradiction that should be clearly identified. He said, I'm particularly concerned about the current salary trend. There's almost only one direction, upwards. Funny, though, that no one seems to mention Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and his quotes and his point of view. None of these people talked about it at all. A guy like Jonathan Lowe here, who's really mad about Levi Colwill's injury, is more than happy to come on Sky Sports and rant about greed and money, and he's not even thinking about the multi-millionaires he's talking about protecting. So, like, what are you talking about, man?
Yes, it's just going to continue in this direction. Players are going to get injured. Their livelihoods in terms of long-term futures are going to be damaged, and the authorities at the end of the day don't really care at the end of the day, because it's a money business. The bottom line is sponsorship, commercial, and the figures involved. So I see, regardless of how many injuries occur, I just can't see how this ends.
So the thing about most of these British-based journalists is that they are heavily anti-capitalist. And look, that's totally fine. They can have whatever political or economic views they want. I have no issues with that. But you can hear it in everything they say. Like, they really have deep disdain for wealthy people. What's hilarious is that these guys reserve their disdain for the people at the top. Multimillionaires, those are just units of labor that are being sweated, and so unfair. This point is being made over and over again, and frankly, it's starting to lose a lot of power. From what I've seen, especially in the comment section of that video, people were just not down with this. The ones that you really should be going to bat for are players in the lower leagues, players that play on terrible pitches, have bad facilities, have really low-class team doctors. Sometimes they get misdiagnosed for an injury, have an operation, and actually ruins their career, and they don't walk right for the next 40, 50, 60 years of their life. If you want to go and take a stand for the little guy, that's the one. Trying to stick up for a person like Levi Colwill, who, I love the guy, he's a great guy, great person, great player, but he does not need you to be going to bat for him on TV like this. That's the way these guys view it. I want to know what you think. This is Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. Please subscribe to the channel, and again, leave your opinions in the comment section below. I think this is a fascinating topic, and I love hearing what people think. I do think some people have completely distorted opinions about this based on the facts they're given, but that's why I wanted to pick this video apart as best I could. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by. Take it easy.